Welcome back, everybody. How are you all doing today? I hope you're doing great. Right, so this is the 22nd episode of the DubaiLife Podcast, and today, another really special guest for you all. Dominic Nowell will be joining us very shortly on the show. Dom has had huge success back home in the UK, growing his business from scratch as a teenager, sold the company, and has now started something very special indeed, the giving movement. We love the concept, sustainably made and 100% homegrown active streetwear. So can't wait to hear Dom's story. But first, what's been happening, Rich? How are we doing?
Hi, Liam. How are you?
Really
all good?
Thanks, mate. Yeah, really good.
Yeah, good. I think I'm sleeping with these headphones on and everything. We seem to be always talking. I know. I think our bosses are getting a little bit concerned that we're too busy on our podcast and not out there doing work.
I think we're going to have to spread these out a little bit. I'm not posting anything live that we're on at 12 in the afternoon.
But listen, wasn't Paul a great guest yesterday? Do
you know what?
Absolutely stunning.
Yeah, it was inspiring, wasn't it? I was just thinking about it all day after the show. Yeah, I mean, if you haven't listened to that, if anyone's listening to this podcast and they haven't listened to episode 21, go back and listen to Paul's story, because it is. I wrote in the description, Hollywood blockbuster material. And it is. You could easily have a film made out of that.
Indeed, so many twists and turns and ups and downs.
It was just like, okay, he's finally broke through. He's set himself up. He's come back from the brink of death, and then, yeah, again, something else.
Yeah, what a fighter. Yeah. But Dom today is an exciting guy, isn't he? I mean, yeah. As you know, just a few seconds ago we were chatting about it, what he's achieved so far, and it's amazing. Entrepreneurial again, but the thinking man's entrepreneur. Yeah. Entrepreneurs tend to normally be blinking and go for it, but Dom seems to have taken a step back, thought about things, and gone off on an equally successful trails, but with a thinking man's philosophy and a caring man's philosophy. So I can't wait to ask him some questions. I really can't. That's good. Yeah. Anyway, more to it, my friend. Yep. Here's the thing. We were talking about skydiving yesterday. Here's one for you. Al Qudra bike track. Al Qudra bike track's open. So see what I do for you, Liam? I'm getting you fit. You can go to Al Qudra bike track with 4 of your mates, go on the bike. You can even hire a bike there. But I'm sure you've got a funny story about bike riding.
Well, you've teed me up quite nicely there. I know we just mentioned it. This wasn't really planned, but I have done the Al Qudra bike track. I think it's 80 kilometres, the full track, or 50 kilometres. And I went with my Mrs. Kelsey, and we went on the worst day in history. We'd been planning it for ages, and we turned up there at about 5:30, 6 in the morning, and it was a storm. It was lashing it down. The wind was blowing so strong that literally at some point you had to you couldn't keep in a straight line. It was blowing you off the track, and I think it took us about 3 hours to get round. And by the end of it, we were just like,
listen, Liam, I think powers here in Dubai are telling you to stay indoors. You're skydiving.
Powers here in Dubai are telling me to stay on the golf course where it's nice and calm and peaceful. That's what they're telling me.
I think so. Skydiving, no. Bike riding, no. Mm-hmm. Stick to your golf, mate. Stick to your golf, and please, for God's sake, don't go out golfing when it's lightning, because by the sounds of things, it's going to get you.
Yeah, it will. I think they've got my number, haven't they?
Yeah. Listen, I know Dom's very close to joining us, but here's another lovely thing that Sheikh Mohammed, again, showing his caring sort of side, and as Paul said yesterday, actually caring about the citizens, is just rewarded 200 doctors with a golden visa to stay for 10 years, just as a thank you for their fight against COVID-19. Can't see any other country in the world saluting and supporting their doctors like we are here. So again, Sheikh Mohammed, we salute you. Thank you.
Yeah, really good move, I think, again by Sheikh Mohammed. The golden visa is it's an interesting concept, isn't it? Cristiano Ronaldo's got one, I think, as well.
Right. Is he often seen in Dubai?
I'm not sure. I think he comes, but I think Dubai are just trying to bring celebrities in and get eyes on the city. So it's a good move. But the golden visa is 10 years. And I think that's the way that Dubai has to look now in order to attract more visitors and more businesses. I think that's the only thing that really could open up the city even more.
Indeed.
Having permanent residency here.
Yeah, it's relaxed sort of tenfold, fivefold since I arrived 5 years ago. And it's just going to get to that situation. And why wouldn't we want elder people to stay in Dubai for a long time? They've got to buy quality health insurance and health cover, which is here in the city in abundance. Yeah. It's a great place to retire, sort of tolerant, warm, crime-free, etc. Who wouldn't want to retire if they could and stay for a long time and invest in whatever format in Dubai? It just makes sense, As I keep saying to you, in 5-6 years when I go, there's really nothing for me back in the UK. I'm going to be hopefully here or wherever. But yeah, I like living here, as I think I've made it very clear over the last 20 odd episodes I've been involved in.
Exactly. No, I think it'll be more of a home. It'll feel more of a home, wouldn't it, if you had that long-term residency? Because at the moment, I think
it'll lose that transient, won't it?
Yeah, it'll be less transient. I think at the moment people still see Dubai as, come here, work hard, build something, but then they still kind of imagine always going back home. But hopefully that things will change and people will start to grow and build families and stay in Dubai for a lot longer, which I'm sure they will.
Indeed, I couldn't agree with you more there, friend.
I tell you what, Dom has got to be the most punctual guest we've had on the show. He's just turned 1 o'clock and he's right on the button. He's just entered the green room. So I'm sure he'll be enjoying the fruits and snacks and drinks and getting ready.
Indeed, yes, indeed.
Right, let's add him into the call. I'm looking forward to this one, Rich.
Yes, so am I.
It just takes a few seconds. Dominic, how are you doing? Can you hear us?
Yeah, how are you?
Really well, thank you. Loving the view, to start with.
Thank you. Sorry, there's a bit of a shadow, but this is just voice recording, right? You don't want to film.
We do film it as well.
Okay.
But
do you want me to try and move the screen a bit so you can see me more clearly?
If you can, yeah. That'd be great. Be good. Wow, it's all happening there.
Yeah, that's a lot better.
There he is. And there we're having a secret exclusive view of his new range, which is going to be discussed later.
Exactly.
Is that better?
That's perfect, mate. Yeah, that's really good. Right. Nice and bright. Where are you at the moment? Which building is that? It looks like, I'm going to take a guess. Is it the Taj? Is it the residences?
It's next door to Taj. I'm actually in the office. So we're in Cluster X in JLT.
Yep.
Nice.
Amazing. Yeah. That view's pretty impressive of the golf course, isn't it? And the skyline.
Yeah.
Super nice.
Good here. How are you guys?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Really well.
Yeah. Really looking forward to having a chat to you after sort of doing a little bit of research into you. A lot of thought has gone into yourself, for want of a better phrase, hasn't it? You're sort of taking a step back to sort of like redesign yourself, rethink things and go again. It's impressive stuff.
Well, thank you.
How have you found the last few weeks? Obviously, launching a brand in this craziness that we're seeing at the moment must have been pretty full on. But you've managed to, by everything that I'm seeing, it looks like you're nailing it. How's it been? Did you at any point think maybe this isn't the right time to go ahead? Maybe we should wait until this is over?
Yeah, I guess like from a financial perspective, we didn't have much choice.
Okay.
It definitely wasn't planned. Obviously, we weren't aware of coronavirus, so we just kind of had to run with it, and we delayed for a little while. So it was extremely challenging in places.
Yeah.
I think, for example, trying to move stock from a warehouse, from a factory in one part of the UAE, and then move it into Dubai, where they have roadblocks and they're checking every driver has got a permit, etc. And then trying to, for example, to get 10,000 units of clothing, to put those into a warehouse and get them picked while we're in 24/7 lockdown, which is at the time we were. It was incredibly challenging.
Wow, I can imagine.
So how long was the idea in germination? So you were planning this for like 6 months, 12 months, or even longer, and you always had start of 2020 or February 2020. Talk us through that sort of process. What was how long have you been germinating this idea to launch it?
Sure. So I think the story goes that around 3 years ago when I moved to Dubai, I definitely had an idea that I wanted to do something with positive impact. I think with regards to the actual hard work and moving to this full time was a year ago last May. And so I made a decision. I had a previous company that I was running here in Dubai, and I decided to close that company and just put all of my efforts into this. And I'm so glad that I did. It's extremely fulfilling.
Yeah.
My history has been very much in working in a completely different environment where it's quite financially driven. And I think that doing something that's not only has a positive impact, but that's creative, I think is something that gets you out of bed on a morning. It's a real motivator.
Indeed. I think we're going to talk quite a lot about the range and the business, but just, again, you just touched on it there. So tell the listeners what you're trying to do, you know, what the ethos is behind the company, because there's some great things to it. We were just talking before we came on air that we think you've nailed it on every level: the fashion, the what's the word I'm looking for? The empathy that you're going to give out from the range. You know, I'm not just saying this, but I'm a 54-year-old guy, and I'm going to be buying products off you later today. And my girlfriend, she's already picked out about 10 pieces, and I'm saying, whoa, it's all right, it's for charity, But on we go.
So yeah, I guess the idea, there's two aspects to this. There's the business model, and then there's the product itself. So the business model was really the first thing, the bit that I was more confident in delivering, which was to come up with a unique concept, something that we really wanted to disrupt the industry. I think personally, I felt like there was a lot of talk about fast fashion brands and the impact that that's having on the environment, the fact that they're producing huge volumes and a lot of it just gets thrown away into garbage, and that they're just focused on feeding that customer's desire to constantly want something new. And then at the other end of the scale, you had the high fashion brands where I felt that sometimes they were charging too much for the goods that they were providing. So we really wanted to come in with a different idea, which was to have a good value product that doesn't damage the environment, that's certified sustainable. And the most important aspect is the name behind the brand. The Giving Movement was that we wanted to create something where just by going about your daily business, i.e. buying clothes, everybody needs clothes, it's a necessity, is to offer a competitive alternative to the customer, where actually they can have a positive impact, because we'll donate $4 from that each and every item to charity. And I think there's a quote that's always really resonated with me, and it was along the lines of that small actions repeated by many people can change the world. And I think that's a great philosophy to live by, and it really explains what the brand is about.
Yeah, and that's the title of the podcast, I think.
Yeah,
really good.
Thank you, Dom. That's a good one.
Yeah, I'm write that down.
Yeah, but honestly, it's. I mean, you even use recycled water bottles and bamboo as a main source of the material, don't you, to create?
Exactly. So other than when we move from the business model, I guess the last point with regards to the business model is that we traveled all over the world looking at the various popular destinations to manufacture goods. And we really found that although it was more expensive, that it would be better to work with a local manufacturer. And they stitch the garments, but we provide the sustainable fabric, we provide the designs, everything down to the trims. The packaging is made out of vegetables, if you can believe that. It's a new development in packaging where everything, and the reason that that's beneficial is first of all because you're not using plastic, but also that this material biodegrades in a normal environment. So it means that within a 3 to 6 month period, the package just disappears. It doesn't get stuck in landfill, which is one of the big issues that we face with plastic at the moment. So that was kind of the business model, was to be sustainable, to give back, and then to make locally. In terms of the product itself, we developed 2 fabrics, and these took a long time to develop. I really had to understand the process, how we go from a plastic water bottle to developing it into a yarn. But then not only that's not so hard to do. It's making it price competitive, but also making sure it's got all the technical features that you would need in an activewear fabric. If it was just a daily t-shirt, then maybe it's not so challenging. But when you consider you need four-way stretch, it needs to, you stretch in every direction. You need it to be breathable. You need it to be anti-odor. I couldn't believe that if you don't develop the anti-odor function, how bad fabric smells. When you've worn it, it holds on to your smell if you've worked out, etc. So there was so much work from a technical perspective that went into the fabric. And then the final part, which for me is the most important to the customer in terms of the fabric quality, is the feel of it. And we spent a long time developing a structure that is extremely soft. We brushed the fabric, and I can confidently say that there's nothing in the market like it at the moment.
No. And also, I think we haven't mentioned as well that every single piece in your collection, or the collection of that range, is a limited number, isn't it? And you've actually got it on the piece that, this is number 256 of, I don't know how many, but wow, that's clever as well.
No, thank you. Yeah, so I guess an important aspect of sustainability is not just to use sustainable materials, but to use less. So we get around that by making it clear exactly how many garments we've made.
And again, on your website, I like the running total, that how much you've donated almost on a daily basis goes to the charities.
So for us, I think it was something that we probably didn't communicate. I mean, don't get me wrong, we've only been launched 3 weeks today. So we've made a lot of progress, and we're working around the clock to make the customer's experience as good as it can be during COVID. And we are, I think, in the majority of cases, delivering on time. But with regard to the charity donation, for the first week, we kind of realized just how much impact we were having. And so we post that on the story each night just to share as a customer, if you bought from us, like, look, this is the impact you had today.
Amazing. And just quickly, while we're talking about that, what are your chosen charities? What charities are you donating to?
Sure. So I chose 2 charities in particular, and I'd already picked these prior to even developing the range. And there were 2 charities that have a direct impact for children in the poorest parts of the world. This was a group that I personally identified as where I felt was most at need, and it's children who have either got no parents or they live on the street and otherwise would have no food, shelter, or education. And what these charities do, amongst other things, one of the key things that they do is to provide for $4 that child food, education, and shelter for a week. And so by spending $4 on an item, you're essentially changing a child's life.
Amazing.
Let me just shout my girlfriend, Innie, buy some more items. We're buying some more.
Do your bit. Love that. Look, that's a really good introduction, obviously, to what you're doing here in Dubai and the brand that you're building. But let's go back a little bit. Let's talk more about you, Dom, and where this all kind of started from, this entrepreneurial spirit. Were you born an entrepreneur, or was it something that you developed later on after you left school? I read that you studied economics and finance at college. Was that your first kind of look at business, or was it before then?
I think it's a really interesting point, and I don't know the answer in terms of whether you are born with those traits or not. I think it's a lot to do with environment and circumstances, and that will dictate how hungry you are as a person to need to change your circumstances. But yeah, I think my first business experience, I definitely wasn't book smart at school, even until I was 25. I think other than books that had been put forward in school, I hadn't read a single book. It just wasn't our background. Growing up, we didn't read books, we'd watch TV. And so it was a whole journey to kind of have that realization that knowledge is power, and that you can change who you are as a person, and how much value you can bring to a brand or a company if you learn more and you grow and personally develop. So that was definitely a big lesson that I learned after 25.
Yeah, interesting. So what was the family? I mean, what do your parents do? Brothers and sisters? Are they entrepreneurs, or was it? Because you tell us more.
Yeah, so I'm from Leeds in the UK.
So am I.
So originally from Leeds in the UK, and grew up with my mum. And my mum works for Yorkshire Television, which does costume for Emmerdale, a British soap. And my dad has a business in the UK, a flooring business. And I definitely think I learned a lot from both people. I definitely saw how hard my mum was working and continues to work even to this day in her job. And I also saw some of the fruits of his labor that my dad had earned through his business. And I think that I could see the difference between maybe being in employment and running a company.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I got the first interest in business.
Interesting. And what was your first kind of first step, and how did you fall into running your own business? Where did that start from?
Yeah, so I mean, that was really interesting, and I felt like I always had it, and I don't know where it came from, but for as long as I can remember, always had a desire to buy and sell things and change my circumstances, whether that, and I think a lot of people do this growing up, you know, wanting to, I remember handing out leaflets around the local village, wanting to clean cars and wash driveways and things like that. And then I think I realized that I had some like clothing and toys and things when I was 13, 14, that maybe I was growing out of, like, I think Pokemon cards, something crazy like that, just stuff that was lying around. And I borrowed my family's eBay account and started to sell things on eBay around 13, 14. And that's what gave me my first step in business, because by the time I was 16, 17, I was trading all sorts of things on eBay whilst I was going to school, or whilst I was not going to school, as my parents found out. And I tended to spend more time focusing on business and selling on eBay than I did actually going to school towards the end of like 17, 18.
Cool. So you actually, I think, fell into the flooring business. Was that through your father or another route into the flooring world?
Yes, it was actually a different route. I mean, I was aware of his business model. He dealt in something very different. He was dealing with commercial grade flooring for hospitals. We ended up selling direct to consumer. So he was like a business to business background. We were direct to consumer through eBay. And that was just by chance. We started selling things. One of the things we got offered was some flooring, and that's how we got into that market. And then we started to sell things from China and through Alibaba, which is a trade portal. We used to import goods into the UK, and then we would sell them through eBay. And then we eventually moved on to Google, and Google AdWords was a big thing back then. I mean, it still is now, but social wasn't around then. And I guess that was a big lesson learned for me in the 3 years since I moved from the UK to Dubai. I can't believe how much has changed and where the future is in marketing.
Yeah,
Indeed.
Yeah, where do you see the future in marketing? More social, obviously, but I mean, what do you think is the next? Obviously, Instagram's really hot at the moment. We're seeing TikTok blow up during this lockdown. Everybody seems to be jumping on that. I've even had a go myself.
Yeah, I haven't.
Neither have I.
You will.
I'm not dancing for anybody. I'm not dancing for anybody.
I think it's subjective. I think that it depends what business you're in. There will always be bricks and mortar retail stores that you'll want to go and put your product in and market. For me, though, social is definitely the one that allows anybody to sell something. And what I really like about it, and when I try to explain to maybe someone who doesn't know so much about marketing, is that it's a bit like a calculator. And because there is so much data that Facebook and Instagram collects, you've got demand there. You just have to find the product in order to supply it. And it's a bit like a calculator. You get your numbers right, and the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. So can I just take you back a bit, because I'm fascinated with, you've built this flooring business. Did you actually have bricks and mortar retail in the UK at this stage, or was everything done through social media or, Google, as you say?
So we started out on eBay while I was at school. I then decided to take a gap year before going to university. Ended up not going to university, but in that year, I started to learn a lot more about Google and about websites and marketing through Google. So then we set up with that, and we developed a call center. We found that a lot of our customers wanted to speak to us before purchasing. It was quite a big purchase. If you imagine you're buying flooring for your house, generally it's quite an expensive transaction. So we needed to set up a well-trained customer service and sales team to speak to them. So the next step was the call center. And then finally, when we felt like we'd saturated eBay and Google, we decided to set up a multi-channel business, which was to also sell through bricks and mortar retail stores. And so I took on a chairman or mentor who was the ex-CEO of Phones for You, a big phone retailer in the UK. And he came and advised me. And Nick Fisher was a huge influence on my career in life. And he gave me so much insight and ideas and helped me develop a retail store plan. So when I sold the company and moved to Dubai, we'd opened up 22 retail stores.
Well, how old were you, Dom, when you were sort of going down this avenue? How old were you when you were thinking, right, so I know I'm going to ask you a question about selling to the Chinese very shortly, but how old were you at this stage?
At which point, when I decided to sell?
No, when you sort of like took on the mentor, if you like, the CEO, etc., and decided to actually really go for all avenues and get it set up.
Yeah, definitely. So we reached a point where we were growing, but we'd kind of saturated Google and eBay, and I was about 25 when I decided to take on Nick as a mentor. And then he really opened my eyes. He kind of told me stories of where he'd opened up 800 retail stores across the UK, and he'd personally overseen that. And I thought, wow, that's a whole different market that I'm not even looking at. And so he helped me develop that vision for becoming a multi-channel business.
I see. And what did you, I'm sorry to ask this, but did you make any mistakes in those formative? I'm sure you did. And what did you learn from them?
So many mistakes. I think that whenever you go out into a new industry or you try and do something different that you've not done before, you're constantly going to make mistakes. And I think that it's important to accept that it's a journey and not to just take how it's been in that particular day as it's going to be forever. And as long as you can create solutions and you've got good people around you and you stay positive, which is, for me, is vital, I think that you will always continue. And I think it's this old saying, right? Never quit. That's one of the traits that I've always identified in successful brands or business owners, is that there is no option to quit. You stay strong on your long-term vision, and whatever comes up, you find a way. I'm sure a lot of businesses have gone through an extremely challenging time right now with COVID, even people on a personal level. And I think that's where people's character shows. You know, do you continue and get up and fight however bad it is every day, or do you just struggle and not be able to recover from it and just get yourself in a bit of a bad place? And I do hope that everybody finds the courage to get through that period. It has been challenging.
Well said.
It has. I listened to a really interesting podcast. I've got a Whoop. I don't know if you've heard of Whoop strap, but it's basically like a body monitoring strap.
Okay.
It's really advanced. It's like an Apple Watch, but it's not a watch. It's just purely about measuring your recovery and your strain. It's pretty interesting. Yeah. It's growing at a big rate. And they had the founder of Netflix on the podcast, because he was a Whoop, and they were talking about starting off Netflix, and they tried everything at the start. He was trying to do custom order shampoo, so people would have to send off a little snippet of their hair and send it to them, and they would analyze the hair and send shampoo. That didn't work. They had custom made baseball bats, dog food, all these different things that they tried. But what was really interesting was with Netflix, they got to a position where they were doing quite well with they were basically shipping CDs, DVDs, and they had investors. They were in the hole for $50 million with their investors, and it just wasn't taking off. And they had a meeting with, I think it was a Chinese company. Well, first of all, Jeff Bezos at Amazon offered them $20 million, which they turned down. And they had this meeting with the Chinese investors, and they said, look, if we can get 50 million for this company, we won't have made any money, we won't have lost any money, we can give back the money to the investors and we're out. And they got an offer nowhere close to 50 million. And at that point, it was like, there's no way to go back. We're going to have to just work through this. And there was no option for them to quit. And at that point, that's when they really, focused, and that's when it took off. But it's an amazing story, similar to what you were just saying.
I think just because I know I didn't answer your question properly, I went off talking about COVID, but I think that biggest mistakes, probably hiring friends. That was a big one that I learned early on. It's not to say that partnerships can't work and that you can't, but just in my experience that it was very challenging. So that was a big lesson right at the start of my career.
What was hard about working with friends? Was it being able to really give your honest opinion sometimes, perhaps?
No, I think I'm not. I think I can manage the communication aspect to it. I think it was more about potentially them not being the right fit, but you giving them enough space, like wanting to give them space to develop when maybe they were never going to be in the position to do what the role that was offered. And I think I wasted a lot of time and had a lot of challenges around that. Whereas I think if you stick to, it's always difficult because for me personally, I want to help people. And if someone comes to say like, oh, I could really do with like, can I work for you? I need a job or something like that. Then I would always, I guess, want to try and help them. And I just think I've learned over the last 12 years that if you have to take the emotion and friendship aside and just look at it as, is it going to work? Because I think it might work to start with, but I think then as time goes on, it can be more challenging.
Indeed. There's the old saying, isn't there? Friends for friends and business for business, and the two should never mix. Yeah,
definitely. I think the second thing was finances. As what I would say is like a wheeler dealer trader coming out of school with no business acumen. I think that the biggest lesson I learned was really having either personally learning the financial aspects to a business, being able to produce management accounts, reports, be able to do everything with regards to finance because it's the lifeline of the business, or hiring someone who that you can rely on and trust to keep your finances in good order. Because I think that coming out of school and jumping into the business world, if you've not learned about that, it can be a huge challenge for you.
Again, that's only experience, isn't it? You know, even if you came out of university with a degree in accountancy, whatever, until you actually put that into practice for 2 or 3 years or more, you know, it makes me smile. Like, oh yeah, I'm a business consultant because I've got a degree in like how to run a business. No, you only learn by getting your hands dirty, you know, and like having your successes and your failures, and then you can take it from there. You know, you can't overestimate that importance of just getting stuck in and making mistakes, but learning. And it's great to have, as you say, a mentor to advise and to lead. But that's where we're up to, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, definitely.
One thing that I'm really interested in is a successful business always relies on, I think, management of people and good HR, and the recruitment process is obviously key to that. How have you dealt with finding the right people? Because it's something that I always imagine, you know, growing a business, it must be so hard to put your trust, especially with something that you've built personally, giving it away to other people. And I think a lot of people struggle from having a small business which they're in control of to expanding and growing and relinquishing some control. How do you make sure you've found the right people to give, you know, to give responsibility to?
So I think and this leads back to mistakes made in terms of when I was first starting out, because I was very young, I was 18, 19 years old, is that my go-to mechanism for recruiting was always to look at the CV and go off experience. And in my opinion, that's absolutely the wrong way to recruit. But I had to go through that experience to learn that. I do think that experience is very important. But for me, it comes back to the quote around will or skill. And I think that from a skill can be taught, but will can't. And I think I've always tried to use that principle when I've been building teams. And that's in a nutshell, it's just that people with the right mindset, that are positive, that want to grow and learn, and they value the position and they see it as a career and not just a paycheck. I think those are the key things that you should look for. And I feel like because I've recruited so many people over the last 12 years, I think you do learn through experience. And I think that the things I look for is just mindset, and as opposed to skill. Of course, you want them to have relevant skill in the position that they're looking after. But if you were going to compare people on a case-by-case basis, the difference for me is always the person's mindset and attitude. It's very difficult, in my experience, to change if someone's got things going on outside of work and they've got personal challenges that maybe are taking over their life, or they're just not that interested in the role. It's very difficult to motivate someone like that to come and get behind the vision and the brand. Whereas if someone is maybe a little bit more focused on their career and has the right attitude, you know, this can-do attitude. Can-do attitude to everything, like a solutions over problems. And I think responsibility is a huge aspect. A huge point I look for is like looking for examples of where the person's been responsible in their role. I think what you can get a lot of, especially if you hire people from big corporates, is that they're looking for the system and the process already in place and just to sit and do it that day in, day out.
Yeah.
Whereas if you look for someone who's a bit more responsible and are used to, say, being a manager, etc., the key thing I look for is, can I lean on that person to oversee this and make my life easier?
So here's a question. At this stage now, your flooring business in the UK is going from strength to strength. How many people are you employing then?
So when I left the UK, we had 108 people.
108, yeah. Because what happened? How did the Chinese come to you and offer to buy the business?
So I was sat in Dubai at the Dress Hotel in the Marina. I'd come away, as I'd been doing quite regularly, to get a bit of respite. If you can imagine, our offices were in what essentially was like a call center, was our call center. So I had the phones, people making 200 outbound calls a day, checking customers got their order and samples. And it was very noisy. So I used to come to Dubai just on my own. I would go book in a hotel for a week, and I would sit and just relax and think and plan and just have some time thinking outside of the box. And so I was sat there in January of 2017, and I'd had a great week on my own, and I was thinking, I just don't know, if I look at my life over the next 5 years, will I want to stay in the UK? From the up north in Leeds, it's the weather's not great. There's not a lot always going on compared to somewhere like London, or compared to Dubai. And I like to go for a run. At that point, it was winter, and I'd been stuck on a treadmill for about 3 months, as opposed to being able to go run outside because it was freezing. And I was having this great time in Dubai, and I just thought, if I look at my life in the next 5 years, will any more of what I'm already doing, any more money, any more growth in the company, anything going forward in this project, will it make me any happier as a person? And I could confidently say no. And then I looked at what was the opportunity in Dubai from a personal perspective. I was 27 at the time, and I was quite young in my career. And I thought, if I'm going to make a decision before I get any deeper into this, then maybe it would be a good time to look and realign what I put my time and energy into.
Interesting. Was it always Dubai? Because that was going to be my next question. What made you think of Dubai? What made you come to Dubai? Was it always Dubai, or was there other options?
Yeah, definitely always Dubai. 100%. It felt like home, and still to this day feels like home. It doesn't feel like home for me in the UK. Obviously, my family are there, and I love to see them. But Dubai England as a place doesn't feel like home. I don't know what it is here. I feel like, because the majority are expat, I feel like everybody's come here for a reason, and that usually it's for a better future. And we can live a healthy lifestyle here. The weather's good. It's a very clean and safe place. And so for me, it just felt like a great place to start the next chapter of my life.
Amazing. And what was the start then here in Dubai? So you decided, enough's enough. You managed to get the sale of the business in the UK, and then Dubai just coming over, or did you have something lined up and planned here?
So I knew that from a personal perspective, I wanted to be in Dubai. So in answer to your previous question about how that sale came about, it was actually far quicker than you would anticipate. So it was literally a case of, I'd been feeling like I was coming towards the end of this trip. It was the start of a new year, and I didn't really feel like I wanted to go do another 12 months in the company. It was good, but it just wasn't fulfilling me. It wasn't motivating me anymore. It was we were just looking at numbers, looking at growth and numbers, and there was no real purpose behind it. And so I was sat in the Address Hotel, and I called I knew people in the industry, big suppliers and manufacturers, people that had good money behind them. I wouldn't have ever been able to sell it through a traditional route, through like a private equity or something like that, because the business was too young. So I basically had a handful of people that were already in the industry that I knew, if they were able to take my business, it would be beneficial to them. They could gain market share, they could gain extra turnover through the product. And so I basically offered it to 5 or 6 people. 5 of them turned it down, or were not willing to give me a decent offer. And then one particular company was actually going through a merger and acquisition, and they had an investor buying them out, and they wanted to lump our business in with what they were doing. And so within a 2-week period, I'd gone from having the idea to sell to flying back to Dubai, having the investors and the buyers fly in from China, signing the contract with solicitors, and then 2 weeks after that, so 4 weeks in total, I moved to Dubai.
Wow. And obviously, a weight was off your shoulders. That I know you didn't have to sell the business, but as you said, you were coming to the end of it, the end of that journey. Did you have an idea, or was it just like time to recuperate, refresh? And I know self-improvement is a big thing to you. Did you have a mental idea, right, I'm going to give myself 6 months, a year, just to think about things, analyze, and or did you have this, for example, the clothing range in mind even then? I mean, to talk us about the first few months in Dubai.
So I think I knew that I wanted to be located here. I didn't have too much of an idea on what I wanted to do next, but I did know that this was the place I wanted to be. I think that at the time, I decided to pack up, and I thought I will do 3 months, but with the intention of fully moving over. And I thought I would just have some time. You know, I'd been running, I was 27 at that point. I'd been working 6 or 7 day weeks, long hours, since I left school at 18. And it never really slowed down. And I felt like I'd missed a big chunk of my life where friends were at university. They'd gone out and had a great time. And, you know, I got to see them, but it was briefly for a night here and there. And so I felt like I'd not really taken much time for myself. And so I had a year out in Dubai before I came up with this project.
Cool. And go on, tell us, how on earth did you go from flooring to sustainable, ethical clothing? How did that happen?
So, I mean, flooring was something that I got into by chance. It definitely wasn't a passion of mine. I loved business. I loved the idea that, you know, you can create something from nothing, and that people will be interested in, and you can change your circumstances and your family and friends around you through that. So that was that. I remember that magic moment of understanding like what a business is, what you can do with a business right within my first few weeks of leaving school. So I was kind of hooked from a business perspective, but I realized that having gone through that journey and got to a very good place and realized it wasn't really fulfilling me, I needed to look at inside what was going to create fulfillment for me on a personal level. And so I sat and thought about what would I want to do, and that's help people. I think that you can always, it feels good, but also, you know, it just motivates you to there's so many things that we can change in the world that if we spend time and effort on, that we can do. So that was the real reason for setting up that as a purpose. And then I had to find something as a person. There was only so much I could do for charity, one single person. You know, you're limited by your time in the day. And so the idea was to come up with a product that everybody uses or needs, and something that I'm interested in, that I can put passion and creativity into. And we came up with the clothing brand, The Giving Movement.
It's really interesting. So like I mentioned before with Netflix, they tried everything. Did you have any other ideas apart from clothing that you were running with at the time, or was it always a straightforward decision to go into the active work?
I got offered a few different opportunities for sure. I was offered to come in on selling baby milk powder.
Oh, wow.
To like all of the big retailers here. I mean, I don't have any children, so I've not been through the experience myself yet, but apparently baby milk powder here is massively in demand and undersupplied. So I got offered that as an opportunity. I did a few different bits here and there. I got offered to set up a retail chain, but I knew that I wouldn't go into something unless I would get up every day and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because I think like there's a Steve Jobs video that I'm sure lots of people have seen, and he talks about making sure you do what you're passionate about, because that's the only way you will continue to survive through the toughest times. And without that, you'll want to quit. And that resonates with me, because I definitely had some extremely low times between 18 and 25, things that you would never imagine could go wrong. You know, people... someone stole like our company bank details, like on a fraud, you know, online fraud, and completely wiped our account out and nearly bankrupt us, and just things you could never anticipate that create huge amounts of personal stress. And so to be able to go through that challenge, you want to do something you're passionate about.
Indeed.
Yeah. So the Giving Movement was born, and I know we touched on it before. A lot of planning went into it. Something that I'm interested in. You mentioned the process to make these items. How the hell do you turn plastic bottles into a piece of clothing? What has to happen for a plastic bottle to be a t-shirt? Or
it's definitely challenging. Obviously, my brand itself doesn't do the process, but we understand the process. We spent a lot of time working with the very few people in the world that have worked out how to do this. And essentially, a huge amount of water bottles are needed to create a yarn. And it's ground down, and then a yarn is spun. And then you develop the weight and the size of it, and in order to create the specification of the fabric that you need. And so there's a lot of trial and error involved, and also things like how you react to how the product will react to a certain color. For example, if you're making everything out of recycled water bottles, when you then change the color, as you can see behind me, there's lots of different colors. The variety that can come out by doing that, it poses a really big challenge. But essentially, it's spun from the yarn and then into a fabric. And then I personally design the patterns, the sizings, the fits, etc. And we then have the finished garment, which we make in the UAE.
Amazing. And again, how involved are you in the design, the actual? Because I mean, looking at the website today, really stylish, really sort of on trend design there. So, do you have a team of designers, all like college grads or university grads in fashion design, or is that you as well?
So it's the one aspect of the business that I've kept for myself, and that's that I have a principle that I believe that as a CEO of a company, you should be able to do every position in that company in order to be able to manage people effectively. So the one area that I had zero experience in 12 months ago was fashion design. So I spent a lot of long hours researching the best, researching how people do it. And I guess that's the beauty, coming back to how I started when I was 18 in business, now it's in fashion design, is that there's a certain beauty, in my opinion, behind learning something in your own way and not necessarily going through the standard route of an education system. And I feel like I've enjoyed every moment of it. To do something creative like that, to be able, there's challenges, you can imagine. So all the factory that we work with in the UAE, they literally stitch the garments for us. We provide the fabric, we provide the trims, the packaging, everything. So from a design perspective, their expectation is we tell them exactly the style, the cut, the stitch, the trims, and that is the only way it was possible to produce. So it's taken us 12 months for me personally to learn that process, and we will hire in the future, but to be honest, I love it. It's a very creative and interesting aspect to the business.
There you go. You see, isn't it amazing, Dom? If you said it 2 years ago, Dom, you'll be designing your own sort of fashion, sports, leisure wear in like 2 years from now, you'd have laughed your socks off, wouldn't you?
Definitely. And it just shows you, and it's the first time I've really felt like this, that you literally can be anything you want to be if you've got the right mindset. Yeah. And I hope that is just an example of where you can do that, because of course I'm sure, and there were people 12 months ago when I was coming up with this idea that would tell me the usual things when I start a business. Oh, it's a very competitive market. Oh, well, the economy's not great. Oh, well, you need all these different skills to do that. And I mean, these are common objections that people give you whenever you start anything. And I've just never listened ever to any of it. I've never listened to any of those limiting beliefs because I don't believe in it. I'm a big fan of The Secret, the law of attraction, and it's worked so many times for me. It's the reason I'm in Dubai. It's the reason I've set up every business. And our company trading name is LOA, Global Exports, which is Law of Attraction, Global Exports, because it's had such a profound impact on my life. And I do believe you can do anything. Of course, you've got to put in the work. Yeah. You've got to learn and grow, but it's just, for me, it's been about focus. I've dedicated the last year 7 days a week to learning the fashion industry and the design and just trying to create a product that people will enjoy, because then the benefit of that is it'll have a huge positive impact.
Yeah, indeed.
Amazing. Great. Very good stuff. So the brand now is still very new. 3 weeks, you said, since the launch during this during COVID-19. I love how you put on the branding, born in COVID-19. That's going to be that's going to be very cool to look back on. Yeah. Where are you heading with this brand? What is the vision? Let's say 5-10 years. Are you going to still focus in Dubai? Are you going global with this? What's your vision for the brand?
I think it's been a very interesting lesson learned for me since I moved to Dubai, because I probably moved with a very different mindset to when I've then settled here. And I think the I anticipated that I would live quite a luxury life and go and do all the things that you do as a tourist in Dubai. And I think when you get here, you realize that actually you can have a very comfortable life, and those things, yeah, it's nice to do here and there, but I feel like I've developed a very what's the right word, just a comfortable life that isn't necessarily financially led anymore. It's to enjoy the environment, the people that are in it, and live a healthy and positive life. And in terms of the future of the brand, the reason that I mentioned that is that my only KPI right now is about the positive impacts that we can have. How many lives can we change through this brand? That's all I'm interested in every day, because as a person, I've been in that position 5 years ago where we were chasing the bottom line and profit, etc. And it never ends. You know, everyone knows that there's always another level. There's always another level. And so if that is your main motivator from a personal perspective, it's not a motivator for me now. It's just about, there's no better feeling than seeing that post that we put on at 9-10 o'clock at night that says how many donations we've made for the day.
Indeed. No, it's inspiring. I'm sitting here now thinking how Liam and I, with our real estate backgrounds, can actually contribute as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I got very close ties to Cuba, and back in the day, I was trying to do my bit for Cuba. It's such a rewarding. You know, it's not about self anymore, is it? It's about helping others in a less fortunate situation and discovering the next Dom or whatever, and giving them that chance to get going.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you have a set target? As I know, like Tony Robbins has this 1 million meals for America that he aims for. I think he's probably done that 100 times over. Do you have something similar to how many lives you'd like to touch with this brand?
I think, like, from an industry perspective, and I'm sure people might think it's impossible, but my experience tells me that nothing is impossible, as you explain, like people like Netflix and things. And I think if you get the business model right, is that we want to be up there competing with the major sports and fashion brands, because the whole purpose of the project is to disrupt the current industry and offer people a different choice. Yeah. And I think that the business model is different to the rest of the brands. And I think the product is as good as, if not better, than a lot of the brands. You know, it's a good value product.
Really good value.
There's really no end goal. We're enjoying the process. With any startup, it can be challenging, especially with COVID. And we're trying to enjoy this process and not focus too much on target. But the goal would be, we want to move into Saudi. We're doing a lot of international business, even in the first 3 weeks. We'd want to put stock on the ground and replicate the model that we've done in the UAE. So to put stock in Saudi, to put stock in the UK next, huge in the UK. There's not many brands doing, we kind of feel like we're ahead of the curve with regards to sustainability and the charity donations. So we want to get this exposed to as many people as possible. The next phases is to go to the UK and then over to Europe and the US.
Right.
Amazing. Looking forward to following Ryan and seeing you make this into a reality, which I'm sure you will.
Dom, can I just put in? Tell me, if I ordered a product today, what is the delivery? I know it's difficult times again with this COVID-19, but if we ordered product today, when would we expect it on our doorsteps?
This is a very interesting topic to discuss because of COVID. So the way that we're trying to offer the best experience possible. So in a normal environment, we've got the service to offer same day and next day delivery, and then that's in the UAE, and then 3 to 5 working day delivery for the majority of the rest of the world. The international deliveries are happening on time, 3 to 5 days. So the orders are getting there in the UK, the US, Australia. They're getting lots of people ordering from those locations. The challenge that we face right now in Dubai or in the UAE is not only COVID, but also Ramadan. So the process what we have experienced over the last 3 weeks is that we offer free delivery for every customer, no matter what you order. You buy something small, you buy a lot, we'll deliver for free. And that is on a next day service. What we have found is that all delivery companies, and we've tried many, are getting delayed for between a day or 2 in around 1 in 8 cases. So in answer to your question, we will pay for the next day service, but we've now changed the website to say 2 to 4 day delivery.
To know. So Liam, here's a challenge. As soon as we finish chatting to Dom, I'm going to order, you order, and let's see who can get their picture onto our Instagram pages first. Who's going to be the best model, you or me? Done? Deal?
Yeah, 100%. I'm up for that challenge. So Dom, this is the DubaiLife Podcast, and we touched on obviously your decision to move over to the city and why that was. But one question that we always like to ask our guests on the show is, what would be your perfect day in Dubai? So starting off from waking up, I know you love your business and you love to work, but just trying to put that aside for 1 minute. What do you like to do? How does your perfect day look?
So I've always, since I moved to Dubai, never put curtains in the room that I sleep in, because I like to try and get up when the sun rises, and I find that's a good way rather than setting an alarm. It's just always been something I've done, and I love that time in the morning where you can get up ahead of the curve before anything's really moving, and you've got that time to yourself. So a perfect day for me is to get up nice and early, have a bit of me time, maybe do some gratitude journaling, sit around, have coffee. Then at the moment, unfortunately, it's closed, but I love nothing more than to train at Barry's. I've developed a great bunch of people as friends from that place. Tend to train there every day.
I've done that.
And then,
that's a tough one.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's great. It's extremely challenging physically, and I think when you're running a business, you don't always have the time or motivation to work out every day. But when you go to one of those classes, they're telling you what to do. It's a nice environment, and so that is what I would normally do in the morning.
The concept of Barry's is so they've got the treadmill, and then they've got like weights and then body weights. Is that right? Is it like a 3?
Yeah, so basically it's like HIIT training. So you split between running and weights for around 45 minutes to an hour. But they have an instructor there. It's all in time with the music. They make the music play to motivate you, and you're filled in a room full of other people. And so it's extremely competitive and motivating. And just for me personally, like, I know that a lot of the time I wouldn't go if I didn't set myself a schedule to go to one of their classes.
Yeah.
And then, to be honest, since I've moved here, I tend to spend a lot of time at home. I think that I love to go for a walk around the marina on a night. And then in terms of like favorite places to go to, I loved living and working this side at Marina JLT side. I love down to go to DIFC. I just think it's a great example of what Dubai's achieved.
Yeah. Any favorite restaurants? Where would you go for lunch or dinner? What's your favorite place?
So I love Vibe Cafe. I feel like it's just, again, a very different proposal. I think when you run a brand and you're trying to look for points of difference and things to do differently, you start to appreciate it in different industries. And there's a Vibe Cafe in DIFC, and this is just really nice food, really nice environment. And that's definitely one of my favorite places to drop by.
Nice.
I like that. I'll have to check that one out. I haven't been to Vibe Cafe. Yeah. And finally, on the show, we always ask, we are from a real estate background, as we mentioned before. What would be your dream home in Dubai? I'm not sure how much you've seen of the real estate that's in the city, but what would you, money's no object, where would you choose?
So I think I've lived in the 5 at Palm when it first opened, and I enjoyed that, but it turned into a bit of crazy party.
Going down to the pool on an afternoon, it must be full on party.
So I decided to, just for me personally, I decided to move to the marina. But I think I would personally live towards DIFC side, or I love getting out in the desert. Private residence, somewhere away from everything. That would be my personal goal, subjectively speaking. You see these amazing, I don't know, I've forgotten what they call them now, but like farms, right?
Yeah.
People have these farms and they set them up out in the desert. And I think that's an incredible experience, but that is definitely on my goals list eventually.
Nick, I know you're a friend of Nick Purvis. He came up with a great answer, which completely threw us off track. What was the area called again, Richard?
Where the new zoo safari park is. And he's got a friend or something that actually built a place overlooking the jungle of this new safari stroke zoo. And like the last thing you think in Dubai is to be looking onto jungle, isn't it? But what a great answer.
Yeah. I think that's probably why I said the same as a farm, because I think we get so used to the desert now that it's nice to have a load of greenery and just a different environment.
Brilliant. Well, look, I know you're really busy. Obviously, at the moment, it's all hands on deck for you with this brand. So really do appreciate your time today to talk to us. I've really enjoyed it, and I'm sure the listeners will as well. Where can people find you? Obviously, it's the Giving Movement. You're on Instagram. You've got the website. Is there anywhere else people can find you? I'll put all the tags in the description.
Yeah, so that's the main two. We've got thegivingmovement.com and then just Instagram @thegivingmovement.
Awesome.
All right, thank you so much, guys.
No problem. Really
enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. So there we have it, everyone. I hope you've all enjoyed that, and you're planning now to head straight to the Giving Movement to pick up your clobber and do your bit for a meaningful cause. Don't forget to leave a like rating if you're listening on Apple, and you can now follow the show on Instagram @the DubaiLife Podcast. Until next time, we are out. Thanks for listening.